Absorption by roots, the process involved. Guide to ICC. State the three primary functions of roots: fixation of the plant in the soil, absorption of water and minerals from the soil, conduction of absorbed water and mineral salts through its tissue to the upper parts of the plant. Fixation of the plant in the soil, absorption of water and minerals from the soil, conduction of absorbed water and mineral salts through its tissue and xylem to the upper parts of the plant. Next, mention four passes for which the plant needs water. Plants need water for photosynthesis, transpiration, transportation, mechanical function. Photosynthesis, transpiration, transportation, mechanical function. Next, what are the mineral nutrients mostly used in plants? The mineral nutrients required by plants are absorbed from the soil by the roots only. Some of these nutrients are nitrates, phosphates, sulfates are absorbed as salts, and some potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, etc. simply as ions. এই নিউট্রিয়েন্টগুলো নাইট্রেট ফসফেট সালফেট এগুলো অ্যাবজর্বড as salt আর potassium calcium magnesium chloride as ions. These elements are required as constituents of cell and cell organelles, as well as in the synthesis of variety of compounds or enzymes within the cell. Next, list three main characteristics of the roots that suit them to draw water from the soil. Roots provide a huge surface area. Roots contain the solution, cell sap, at a concentration higher than that of the surrounding soil water. Root hairs have thin walls. Roots provide huge surface area. Roots contain the solution, cell sap, at a concentration higher than that of surrounding soil water. Root hairs have thin walls. Next, diffusion is the movement of molecules from a region of lower concentration to that of higher concentration. It falls. Osmosis includes diffusion but not vice versa. This is true. Osmosis includes diffusion but not vice versa. Next, osmosis is unidirectional. True. Exosmosis may cause bursting of the cell. True. Wrong. Exosmosis may cause bursting of the cell. It wrong. Our semi-permeable membrane prevents the passage of solute molecules. True. In an experiment on osmosis, if external pressure is applied on a dilute solution, less water will pass into the concentrated solution. False. Next question. In what way is active transport opposite to diffusion? Active transport is the passage of substance from its lower to higher concentration, opposite to what happens in diffusion. Just opposite active transport is the passage of substance salt or ion from lower to higher concentration, opposite to what happens in diffusion, through a living cell membrane using energy from the cell. Active transport is in a direction opposite to that of diffusion. Next, a cell, next question. A cell kept in certain solution bursts after some time. Comment upon the kind of solution. The solution is hypotonic. Which process, diffusion, osmosis, or active transport, needs involvement of energy? Active transport needs involvement of energy. Can we call diffusion passive transport? If so, how? Yes, diffusion is a passive transport as the movement of substance is according to concentration gradient. No energy is spent by the cell for its movement. Yes, diffusion is a passive transport as the movement of substance is according to concentration gradient. No energy is spent by the cell for its movement. Next, state the state of a cell when it cannot accommodate any more water. Turgid. Pressure of the cell contents on the cell wall, turgor pressure. The part of plant cell which is like the leather causing a casing of a football. Cell wall. The condition that is opposite to turgid, flaccid. The state of plasmolysed cell after the re-entry of water. Uh, Deplasmolized but turgid, the pressure under which water passes through living cells of a root into xylem, root pressure. তাহলে the state of a cell when it cannot accommodate any more water, turgid. Pressure of the cell contents on the cell wall, turgor pressure. The part of the plant cell which is like the leather causing casing or leather casing of a football, এটা হচ্ছে cell wall. The condition that is opposite to turgid, flaccid. The state of a plasmolized cell after the re-entry of water, turgid but deplasmolized. The pressure under which the water passes from living cells of a root into xylem, root pressure. Next, look at the experiment shown in the figure below. Why was it necessary to take colored eosine solution in water in the beaker? Beaker containing eosine solution, a root, মানে transverse section of root, xylem tissue and stained pink, the stem, transverse section of stem, the leaf, transverse section of leaf, and xylem tissue stained pink. এবার বলছি it is necessary to take colored eosine solution in water in the beaker so that the xylem vessel appear distinct from the rest of the tissue. It is necessary to take colored eosine solution in water in the beaker so that the xylem vessel appear distinct from the rest of the tissue. Which part in the stem, the xylem or phloem, is located deeper internally? Xylem. Look at the given figure. Why has the stem below the ring stopped growing and even slightly decayed? It is because the food prepared by leaves does not reach the lower portion as there is no phloem. It is because the food prepared by the leaves does not reach the lower portion as there is no phloem. Next question. Absorption of water by the plant cells by surface attraction is called imbibition. Absorption of water by plant cells by surface attraction is called imbibition. A plant cell placed in a certain solution got plasmolized. What was the kind of solution? Hypertonic salt solution. Next question. The state of a cell in which the cell wall is rigid and stretched by the increase in volume due to the absorption of water is called turgidity. Which one of the following is a characteristic not related with the suitability of roots for absorbing water? Grow downward into the soil. Which one of the following is not a characteristic related with the suitability of roots for absorbing water? Grow downward into the soil. Next question. Movement of molecules of substance from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration without the involvement of separating membrane is called a diffusion. Movement of molecules of substance from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration without the involvement of separating membrane is called diffusion. Number 6. Osmosis and diffusion are the same, kept that in osmosis there is a selectively permeable membrane in between. Osmosis and diffusion are the same scale except that in osmosis there is a selectively permeable membrane in between. Next, number 7, the highest water potential, মানে capacity to move out to higher concentrated solution. The highest water potential that of pure water. The highest water potential that of pure water is that of pure water. The space between the cell wall and plasma membrane in a diplasmolized cell is filled with honey. Na to? Hypertonic solution. The space between the cell wall and the plasma membrane in a deplasmolized cell is filled with hypertonic solution. What is responsible for guttation? Root pressure is responsible for guttation. The most appropriate characteristic of a semi-permeable membrane is that it allows a solvent to pass through freely but prevents the passage of the solute. The most appropriate characteristic of a semi-permeable membrane is that it allows a solvent to pass through freely but prevents the passage of the solute. Next, name the following. The condition of a cell placed in a hypotonic solution. Target. The process by which intact plants lose water in the form of droplets from leaf margins. Guttation. The process by which water enters root hairs. Osmosis. The tissue concerned with upward conduction of water in plants. Xylem. The term for the inward movement of solvent molecules through the plasma membrane of a cell. Endosmosis. The process by which molecules distribute themselves evenly within the space they occupy. Diffusion. The pressure which is responsible for the movement of water molecules across the cortical cells of the root. Root pressure. The condition of a cell placed in hypotonic solution. Target. The process by which intact plants lose water in the form of droplets from leaf margins. Guttation. Process by which water enters root hair. Osmosis. Tissue concerned with upward conduction of water in plants. Xylem tissue. The term for the inward movement of solid molecules through the plasma membrane of the cell. Endosmosis. The process by which molecules distribute themselves evenly within the space they occupy. Diffusion. The pressure which is responsible for the movement of water molecules across the cortical cells of the root. Root pressure. Next, pressure of the cell contents on cell wall. Targar pressure. Condition in which cell contents are shrunken, flaccid, loss of water through a cut stain, bleeding. Pressure of cell contents on the cell wall. Targar pressure. Condition in which cell contents are shrunken, flaccid. Condition in which loss of water through a cut stem, bleeding. Hypotonic solution is one in which the solution kept outside the cell has lower solute concentration than inside the cell. Hypotonic solution is one in which the solution kept outside the cell has lower solute concentration than inside the cell. Active transport is one in which the ions outside the roots move in with expenditure of energy in the form of ATP. Active transport is one in which the ions outside the are roots move in with expenditure of energy in the form of ATP. The bending movement of certain flowers towards the sun and the sleep movements of certain flowers at night are examples of Targar movements. The bending movements of certain flowers towards the sun and the sleeping movements of certain plants at night are examples of Targar movements. When placed in more concentrated solution, the cell contents will shrink. When placed in a more concentrated solution, the cell contents will shrink. The pressure by which water molecules tend to cross the semi-permeable membrane is called osmotic pressure. The pressure by which water molecules tend to cross the semi-permeable membrane is called osmotic pressure. Active transport is in a direction opposite to that of diffusion. Active transport is in a direction opposite to that of diffusion. Xylem, upward flow of water. Phloem, downward flow of sap. Cell wall, semi-permeable. Root hair, guttation. root pressure, root pressure, guttation. Cell wall, permeable. তাহলে xylem upward flow of water, phloem downward flow of sap, cell membrane semi permeable, root pressure, guttation, cell wall permeable. Next question. Short answer type questions. Plasmolysis and diffusion difference. Plasmolysis, the shrinkage of cytoplasm towards the center of the cell under the action of hypertonic solution is called plasmolysis. Shrinkage of cytoplasm towards the center of the cell under the action of hypertonic solution is known as plasmolysis. Deplasmolysis. It is reverse of plasmolysis. It is the movement of hypotonic solution towards the cytoplasm of the cell. With the result of deplasmolysis, the cell return to its normal position. Deplasmolysis is the reverse of plasmolysis. It is the movement of hypotonic solution towards the cytoplasm of the cell. With the result of deplasmolysis, the cell returns to its original position. Targar pressure is that which is exerted on the cell wall by fluid contents of the cell when the receiving capacity of the cell reaches its maximum because of osmosis. Targar pressure is that which is exerted on the cell wall by fluid contents of the cell when the receiving capacity of the cell reaches its maximum because of osmosis. এবার wall pressure, the pressure exerted by the cell wall on the cell content is called wall pressure. Pressure exerted by the cell wall on the cell content is called wall pressure. Guttation is the exudation of drops of xylem sap on the tips or edges of leaves of some vascular plants such as grasses. At night, transpiration usually does not occur because most plants have their stomata closed. When there is high soil moisture level, water will enter plant roots because the water potential of the root is lower than that in the soil solution. The water will accumulate in the plant, creating a slight root pressure. The root pressure forces some water to exude through special leaf tip or edge structures, hydatodes or water glands forming drops. Root pressure provides the impetus for its flow rather than transpirational pool. Guttation is most noticeable when transpiration is suppressed and the relative humidity is high, such as during the night. Guttation occurs under conditions of high soil moisture combined with high humidity, which act in concert to reduce transpiration. Drops of water found on grass in early morning are often the result of guttation. Guttation occurs under the condition of high soil moisture combined with high humidity, which act in concert to reduce transpiration. Drops of water found on grass in early morning are often the result of guttation. Next, bleeding. Bleeding is loss of water in plants like milkweed or poppy that exude sap when cut. Okay, bleeding is loss of water in plants like milkweed or poppy that exude sap when cut. Many trees, such as pines, birches, and maples, bleed sap if pruned at the wrong season. Bleeding occurs due to root pressure when continued inward movement of water through cell to cell osmosis helps in the ascent of cell sap upward through the stem. But turgidity, the cell is filled with water so that its cell wall is in a state of tension. Flaccidity, the cell loses water from vacuole and cytoplasm under plasmotic condition. The turgidity, cell is filled with water so that its cell wall is in a state of tension. Flaccidity, the cell loses water from vacuole and cytoplasm under plasmolytic condition. Next, mention whether the following statements are true or false. A plant cell placed in hypotonic solution get plasmolized. False. Addition of salt to pickles prevents growth of bacteria because they turn turgid. False. Cells that have lost their water content are said to be deplasmolized. False. Xylem is the water conducting tissue in plant. True. Xylem is the water conducting. Shrinkage of cytoplasm when a cell is kept in hypotonic solution. False. Shrinkage of cytoplasm when a cell is kept in hypotonic solution. False. The cell wall of root cell is a differentially permeable membrane. False. Next, correct the false statements by altering the last word only. The plant cell placed in hypotonic solution gets deplasmolized. The addition of salt to pickles prevents growth of bacteria because they turn flaccid. Cells that have lost their water content are said to be plasmolized. Xylem is the water conducting tissue in xylem is the water conducting tissue in plants. এটা তো ঠিক, true. তাহলে এটা চেঞ্জের কিছু নেই। The shrinkage of protoplasm when a cell is kept in hypertonic solution. The shrinkage of protoplasm when a cell is kept in hypertonic solution. The cell wall of the root cell is a differentially semi-permeable membrane. Next, what is the difference between flaccid and turgid? Give one example of flaccid condition in plants. Flaccid, the condition in which cell content is shrunken and the cell becomes limp or flaccid is called flaccidity. The condition in which the cell content is shrunken and the cell becomes limp or flaccid is called flaccidity and the cell is then said to be flaccid. Turgid, the state of the cell in which cell is rigid and stretched by an increase in volume of vacuoles due to absorption of water is called turgidity and the cell is then said to be turgid. The condition in which the cell content is shrunken and the cell becomes limp or flaccid is called flaccidity and the cell is said to be flaccid. Turgid, the state of cell in which the cell is rigid and stretched by an increase in volume of vacuoles due to absorption of water is called turgidity and the cell is then said to be turgid. Example of flaccid condition in plants: wilting, wilting, wilting. Give reason for the following. If you sprinkle some salt on grass growing on a lawn, it is killed at that spot because living cells of grass roots are in turgid condition. When common salt is sprinkled on it, plasmolysis takes place and the cells die. If you uproot a plant from the soil, its leaves soon wilt. If you uproot a plant from the soil, water will not be absorbed by it and therefore no water will reach the leaves and they will soon wilt. Next question. It is better to transplant seedlings in a flower bed in the evening and not in the morning. Why? It is better to transplant seedlings in flower bed in the evening and not in the morning because there is no transpiration in the evening because of more atmospheric humidity. Next question. A plant cell, when kept in hypertonic salt solution for about 30 minutes, turns flaccid. A plant cell, when kept in hypertonic salt solution for about 30 minutes, turns flaccid due to plasmolysis. Next question. Potato cubes, when placed in water, becomes firm and increase in size. When potato cubes are placed in water, a hypertonic solution, endosmosis takes place due to which the cell becomes turgid, increase in size and become firm. Next question. Mention whether the following statements are true or false and give explanation in support of your answer. Plasmolysis is the result of outflow of water from cell and deplasmolysis is the result of re-entry. Plasmolysis is the result of outflow of water from the cell and deplasmolysis is the result of its entry. Guttation occurs through hydatodes and bleeding occurs through cut plants. Guttation occurs through hydatodes and bleeding occurs through cut plants. Soaked trees, when kept in fully filled closed container, make the two seed course, that is testa and tigma to burst. Soaked seeds, when kept in fully filled closed container, make the two seed course testa and tigma to burst. Imbibition and target together generate its force. Imbibition and target together generate this force. Next, if the phloem of a twig is removed, keeping the xylem intact, the leaves of the twig remain turgid and stand out almost normally because the water is conducted upward in a plant through a deeper part, that is xylem. If the phloem of a twig is removed, keeping the xylem intact, the leaves of the twig remain turgid and stand out almost normally because the water is conducted upward in a plant through a deeper part, xylem. Dry seeds, when submerged in water, swell up due to endosmosis. Endosmosis is the inward diffusion of water, hence, dry seeds, when submerged in water, swell up. Endosmosis is the inward diffusion of water, hence, dry seeds, when submerged in water, swell up. Next, give two examples of targar movement in plants. Examples of targar movement in plants: the rapid drooping of the leaves of the sensitive plant Mimosa pudica. The rapid drooping of the leaves of the sensitive plant Mimosa pudica. If one of the leaves is touched even lightly, the leaflets fold up within 2 to 3 seconds. The entire leaf droops. If the leaf is touched somewhat strongly, the wave of folding and drooping spreads from the stimulated leaf to all the neighboring leaves. Slowly the leaves recover and again stand erect. Next, the daily orientation of the flower to the sun is a direct result of differential growth of the stem. A plant growth regulator or auxin accumulates on the shaded side of a plant when conditions of unequal light prevail. Because of this accumulation, the darker side grows faster than the sunlit side, and the stem bends towards the sun. The daily orientation of flower to the sun is a direct result of differential growth of the stem. A plant growth regulator or auxin accumulates on the shaded side of a plant when conditions of unequal light prevail. Because of this accumulation, the darker side grows faster than the sunlit side and the stem bends towards the sun. Explain the mechanism of closing and opening of stomata. Mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. The guard cells surrounding the stomatal opening in leaves contain chloroplast when the epidermal cells do not. During the day, photosynthesis takes place in the guard cell and food in the form of soluble glucose is prepared at much faster rate than it can be translocated. Hence, it accumulates in the guard cell and raises its osmotic pressure. The surrounding epidermal cells have a lower osmotic pressure, and water from them diffuses into the guard cell through the semi permeable membrane. Due to accumulation of water, the guard cell becomes turgid and its inner concave wall is distended, leaving the stomata open. At night, the glucose is rapidly translocated through phloem tissue to different parts of the plant body for utilization and storage in the form of insoluble starch. Thus, the osmotic pressure of guard cells falls and water from guard cell passes into the epidermal cells. The guard cells become flaccid, its walls collapse and stoma closes. Concentration of mineral nutrient elements in higher is higher inside the root hairs than in surrounding soil. How do the roots take them in the form of the soil? Certain nutrients such as ions of nitrates, sulfates, potassium, zinc, manganese, etc. cannot pass through cell membrane of the roots easily. This is on account of one main reason, that their concentration is higher inside the root cells, and it is so maintained in order to develop osmotic pressure for absorbing water. The roots take this mineral nutrients in from the soil by active transport. Active transport is the passage of substance from its lower to higher concentration, opposite to what happens in diffusion using energy from cell through a living cell membrane. In this way, the concentration gradient of these ions is opposite to that of diffusion. In other words, to obtain them, these ions will have to be forcibly carried inward from the region of their lower concentration outside to the region of their higher concentration inside, and requires energy which is supplied by the cell by using ATP. Next question: explain how soaked seeds swell up and burst their seed coats. In this case, the water continues to diffuse in through the membranous cover of the seed. This influx of water builds up an internal pressure that may reach a limit which the outer skin of seeds may no longer bear, and they burst. The condition is reached due to passive absorption. Next, leaves of the sensitive plant wilt and droop down on a slight touch. What mechanism brings about this change? Stimulus of touch leads to loss of turgor pressure at the base of the leaflets and at the base of the petioles, causing the leaves to wilt temporarily and they droop down. What is transpiration pool? How is it caused? Transpiration pool: water is lost from the cells of a leaf as a result of transpiration. This results in mesophyll cells absorbing water from the adjoining cells, which absorb water from the xylem elements in the vascular bundles of the leaf. Since the xylem element is filled with continuous water columns, a pooling force is developed at the top of these columns. This pooling force, called transpirational pool, causes an upward movement of water from the petiole to the stem and finally to the roots. Transpiration pool is called so due to the tendency of water molecules to remain joint, cohesion, and thus to produce a continuous column of water through the stem. This pooling force provided by leaves is especially important in tall trees such as pines, which do not have enough root pressure. Next question. The given diagram represents a plant cell but being placed in a strong sugar solution. अच्छा cell wall what is the state of cell shown in the diagram? Flaccid. Name the structure which acts as a selectively permeable membrane. Plasma membrane. If the cell had been placed in distilled water instead of strong sugar solution, which feature would not have been seen? Plasmolysis. Name any one feature of this plant cell which is not present in animal cell. A big hole. Vacuole. Sorry. State of cell shown in the diagram. Flaccid. Structure which acts as a selectively permeable membrane. Plasma membrane. If the cell had been placed in distilled water instead of strong sugar solution, which feature would not have been seen? Plasmolysis. Name any one feature of the plant cell which is not present in animal cell or big vacuole. Next, a leaf cell of a water plant was placed in liquid other than pond water. After some time, it assumed a shape as shown. Give the term for the state of the cell it has acquired. Flaccid. Comment on the nature of the liquid surrounding the cell. Hypertonic. Redraw the diagram of the cell if it is soon placed in ordinary wall for some time. টার্জিট সেল নিউক্লিয়াস এরকম একটা সেল ওয়াল প্লাজমা এরকম. Next, the given diagram represents an experimental setup to demonstrate a certain process. Study the same and answer the questions that follow. Name the process. Osmosis. Define the above named process. Osmosis is defined as the diffusion of water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute to a concentrated solution. Next, what would you observe in the experimental setup after an hour or so? The level of sugar solution in the thistle funnel will rise. What control experiment can be set up for comparison? A control experiment can be set up for comparison by taking another thistle funnel with plain water and filled it in by suspending it in another beaker containing water. Next, keeping in mind the root hair cell and its surroundings, name the parts that correspond to concentrated sugar solution. Concentrated sugar solution এর সাথে correspond করে cell sap. পার্চমেন্ট পেপারের সাথে করেসপন্ড করে রুট হেয়ার মানে সেল মেমব্রেন। ওয়াটার ইন দ্য বিকারের সাথে করেসপন্ড করে সারাউন্ডিংস মানে সয়েল। মেনশন টু অ্যাডভান্টেজেস অফ দ্য প্রসেস টু দ্য প্লান্টস। না, আরেকটা আছে নেম এনি সাবস্টেন্স দ্যাট ক্যান বি ইউজড ইনস্টেড অফ পার্চমেন্ট পেপার ইন দ্য অ্যাবাভ এক্সপেরিমেন্ট। কি ভিস্কিং ব্যাগ, VISKING, ভিস্কিং ব্যাগ। Advantages of osmosis to the plants. Osmosis controls the absorption of water from the soil by root hair. Cell to cell diffusion of water is controlled by osmosis. Osmosis controls the turgidity of cells. Osmosis maintains turgid condition which is necessary for the growth of young cells. So osmosis controls the absorption of water from soil by root hair. Cell to cell diffusion of water is controlled by osmosis. Osmosis controls the turgidity of the cell. Osmosis maintains turgid condition which is necessary for the growth of young cells. The given diagram represents a layer of epidermal cells showing a fully grown root hair. Study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. Parts labeled হচ্ছে root hair, epidermis, cortex, endodermis. The root hair cell is in turgid state. Name and explain the process that caused this state. The root hair is in turgid state because of osmosis. A root hair contains cell sap which has higher concentration of salts as compared to the outside soil water. The different sets of osmosis and the outside water diffuses into root hair and become turgid. Next, mention one distinct difference between the parts labeled A and B. Part A, root hair, that is absorption of water, and part B is epidermis. Next, এটা লেবেল করেছে পার্টসকে সয়েল পার্টিকেলস, সয়েল ওয়াটার, shrunken protoplasm, root hair. Next, answer the questions. Two potato cubes, each 1 centimeter cube in size, were placed in two containers. Container A having water and container B containing sugar solution. After 24 hours, when the cubes were examined, those placed in water were found firm and had increased slightly in size. Those placed in concentrated sugar solution were found soft and had decreased in size. Use the above information to answer the questions that follow. Account for the firmness and increase in size of potato cubes placed in water. As the cubes were placed in water, মানে hypotonic solution, therefore endosmosis takes place. Consequently, the cells become turgid, resulting in firmness and increase in size. Next, account for the softness and decrease in size of potato cubes which were placed in sugar solution. In sugar solution, the water from cell sap goes out due to higher concentration that is outside. For example, that is exosmosis takes place. Consequently, the cell becomes flaccid, resulting in softness and decrease in size. Next, name and define the physical process being investigated in this experiment. The physical process being investigated in this experiment is osmosis. It is defined as the diffusion of water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute to a concentrated solution. Next, study the diagram given below and answer the questions that follow. Name the process being studied in the above experiment. Transpiration. Explain the process mentioned above. It is defined as the process of loss of water in the atmosphere through leaf. Why is oil placed over water? So that no evaporation of water takes place. What do we observe with regard to the level of water when this setup is placed in bright sunlight? The surface of water is covered with oil to prevent the loss of water by evaporation. আর ব্রাইট সানলাইটে দিলে কি হোয়াট কি the surface of water is covered with oil to prevent the loss of water by evaporation. এবার mention any three adaptations found in plants to foster the process mentioned above. More stomata, broadleaf, thick cuticle. Three adaptations found in plants to foster the process of transpiration. More stomata, broadleaf আর thin cuticle হতে হয়, তাহলে মানে foster the process of transpiration, বেশি transpiration হয়. Next, they will show by series of diagrams the change which a plant cell will undergo when placed in hypertonic salt solution আর hypotonic salt solution. Series of diagrams এইটা খুব ঝামেলার, খুব. Next, study the experimental setup in figure and then answer the questions that follow. What phenomena is being studied by this setup? Osmosis. Explain the phenomena mentioned in above. Osmosis is the phenomena of diffusion of water or solvent from a region of its higher chemical potential to a region of lower chemical potential. What is meant by semi-permeable membrane? Semi-permeable membrane is that membrane which allows the entry and exit of only selected molecules across the membrane. What will you observe in the setup after half an hour? Give a reason for your answer. Osmosis will continue until the concentration of water molecules become equal on both sides of the membrane. Osmosis will continue until the concentration of water molecules become equal on both sides of the membrane. Next, a candidate, in order to study the process of osmosis, has taken 3 potato cubes and put them in 3 beakers containing 3 different solutions. After 24 hours, in the first beaker, the potato cube increased in size. The second beaker, potato cube decreased in size. Third beaker, there was no change in the size of the potato cube. Show the experiment. Acha, the following diagram shows the experiment. এবার বলছে give the technical term of solutions in beaker 1 2 3. beaker 1 2 3 তে কি কি hypotonic solution, মানে যাতে in the first beaker the potato cube increase in size, সেটা হচ্ছে hypotonic solution. সেকেন্ড বিকার পোটাটো কিউব ডিক্রিজ ইন সাইজ, সেই জন্য হাইপারটনিক সলিউশন. আর নো চেঞ্জ ডেটার সাইজে সেটা হচ্ছে আইসোটনিক সলিউশন, রাইট? আইসোটনিক সলিউশন. আচ্ছা, তারপরে বলছে ইন বিকার 3 দ্য সাইজ অফ পোটাটো কিউব রিমেইনস দ্য সেম. এক্সপ্লেইন দ্য রিজন ইন ব্রিফ. In beaker 3, the size of potato remains the same because the relative concentration of water molecules and the solute on either side of the cell membrane is same. In beaker 3, size of potato remains same because relative concentration of water molecules and solute on either side of the cell membrane is same. In such solution, there is no net movement of water molecule across the cell membrane. That is osmosis. In such solution, there is no net movement of water molecules across the cell membrane. That is osmosis. Next, write the specific feature of cell sap of root hairs which help in absorption of water. Cell sap is water in water along with dissolved minerals. Cell sap is water along with dissolved minerals. What is plasma osmosis? Osmosis is defined as the process of movement of solvent from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis is defined as the process of movement of solvent from region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through semi-permeable membrane. এবার what is cell wall? Say how does a cell wall and cell membrane differ in permeability? Cell wall is freely permeable and cell membrane is semi-permeable. Cell wall is freely permeable and cell membrane is semi-permeable. State whether the following statements are true or false. Osmosis occurs when two solutions of different concentration are placed by a separated by a semi-permeable membrane. 2. When a cell is placed in hypertonic solution, endosmosis takes place. True. False. False. When a cell is placed in hypertonic solution, endosmosis takes place. False. Wooden doors and windows usually swell during the rainy season because they absorb water due to diffusion. True. Water absorption from the soil can only take place when the soil solution is hypotonic to cell sap. True, guttation in plants is indicative of root pressure. True, ascent of sap takes place through the pith. False, if the xylem vessels are blocked by wax, the plant will wilt. True. তাহলে osmosis occurs when two solutions of different concentration are separated by semi-permeable membrane. True. When a cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, endosmosis takes place. False. Wooden doors and windows usually swell during rainy season because they absorb water due to diffusion. True. Guttation in plants is indicative of root pressure. True. Water absorption from the soil can take place when the soil solution is in hypotonic to cell sap. True. Ascent of sap takes place through pith. False. If the xylem vessels are blocked by wax, the plant will wilt. True. When conditions are isotonic, there is no osmotic movement. Amoeba and phagocytic cells use dash endosmosis. Dash refers to the relative concentration of solute of two fluids. Tonicity. Dash is an energy required pumping of a solute through a membrane against its concentration gradient. Active transport. The unassisted movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is called diffusion. The dash and dash are other molecules with no net charge diffuse across the cell membrane. Oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are small molecules with net charge diffuse across the cell membrane. A dash is the movement of water across a selectively permeable membrane in response to solute concentration gradient, fluid pressure, or both. Osmosis. Dash is the movement of water across a selectively permeable membrane in response to solute concentration gradients, fluid pressure, or both. Osmosis. Through dash cells, through exosmosis cells. Now, through exosmosis, cells eject large volumes of dissolved substances across the plasma membrane. Through exosmosis, cells eject large volumes of dissolved substances across the plasma membrane. Dash does not require an energy input to operate. Active transport. The active transport does not require an energy input to operate. Next, water tends to move from dash fluid to dash fluids. Water tends to move from hypotonic fluids to hypertonic fluids. What is root pressure? How would you demonstrate it experimentally? In the mechanism of water absorption, water is forced into the xylem vessels by surrounding cortical cells with a certain force. This induces a pressure which is responsible for ascent of sap to many feet in xylem. This pressure which is developed due to activity of root is called root pressure. Root pressure is a vital phenomenon and depends upon the living activity of the root cells. The magnitude of root pressure varies from 2 to 3 atmosphere. The pressure is called root pressure which is responsible for ascent of sap. Ever next question. State 3 ways in which root hairs are suited for the absorption of water from the soil. The root hairs are suited for the absorption of water from the soil in the following ways. The thin, freely permeable cell wall of the root hair allows the free movement of minerals in and out of the cell by the process of diffusion. The thin, freely permeable cell wall of the root hairs allow free movement of minerals in and out of the cell by the process of diffusion. The semi-permeable membrane permits entry of water and restricts the entry of salt by the process of osmosis. The semi-permeable cell membrane permits entry of water and restricts the entry of salts by the process of osmosis. The concentration of water in the sap of the root hair is lower than that of the surrounding soil. This makes the absorption of water by osmosis possible. Concentration of water in the sap of the root hair is lower than that of the surrounding soil. This makes absorption of water by osmosis possible. List three factors that are responsible for the ascent of sap: root pressure, transpirational pull and force of cohesion, capillarity and imbibition force. Factors responsible for the ascent of sap are as follows: root pressure, transpirational pull and force of cohesion, capillarity, and imbibition force. Differentiate between active transport and passive transport. Permeable membrane, semi-permeable membrane. Active transport, passive transport difference. Active transport, minerals in solution are transferred from a region of lower concentration to one of their higher concentration by using energy released during metabolism, but that is respiration of roots. Example, respiration of roots. Minerals in solution are transferred from a region of lower concentration to one of their higher concentration by using energy released during metabolism. এটাকে বলে এক্সাম্পল হচ্ছে respiration of roots. হুম Passive transport. Minerals are transferred from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Passive transport. Minerals are transferred from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Next, permeable membrane and semi-permeable membrane difference. Permeable membrane has pores which are large enough to allow free movement of solute as well as solvent movement molecules. Permeable membrane has pores which are large enough to allow free movement of solute as well as solvent molecules. Semi-permeable membrane has pores which are large enough to allow only solvent molecules to pass through them. Semi-permeable membrane has pores which are large enough to allow only solvent molecules to pass through them. Next question. What is the significance of osmosis in plant life? Osmosis controls the absorption of water from soil by root hairs. Cell to cell diffusion of water is controlled by osmosis. Osmosis controls the turgidity of the cells. Osmosis maintains turgid condition which is necessary for the growth of young cells. Osmosis controls absorption of water from the soil by root hair. Cell to cell diffusion of water is controlled by osmosis. Osmosis controls the turgidity of the cells. Osmosis maintains turgid condition which is necessary for the growth of young plants. Next question. How is turgidity important for us? The turgid condition of a cell is essential for its growth and that of the plant. Turgidity initiates various movements of different organs of the plant, like those of guard cells of the stomata. A turgidity of cells of root cortex is responsible for forcing the water into the xylem vessels. Turgid condition of a cell is essential for its growth and that of the plant. Turgidity initiates various movements of different organs of plants, like those of Guard cells of the stomata. Turgidity of cells of root cortex is responsible for forcing the water into xylem cells. What are targar movement? Targar movement of plants are shown by temporary change of targar pressure of the cells in certain regions of the plant. The targar movement can be of two types: autonomic targar movement and nastic targar movement. Targar movement of plants are shown by temporary change of targar pressure of the cells in certain regions of the plant. Targar movement can be of two types: autonomic targar movement and nastic targar movement. Autonomic targar movements. In autonomic targar movements, the plant shows spontaneous movement at fixed intervals. যেমন ইন্ডিয়ান টেলিগ্রাফ প্লান্ট এক্সাম আর ওটা সাইন্টিফিক নেম হচ্ছে ডেসমোডিয়াম গাইরানাস. In nastic movement, the nastic movements are produced when sensitive part of the plant is transgulated by tough of shaking. Example, চুইমুই মানে মিমোসা পুদিনকা, টাচ মি নট প্লান্ট. What is guttation? Some well watered plants in humid and hot and humid summer begin to ooze out water drops from the. What is guttation? Some well watered plants in humid summer begin to ooze out water drops from the uninjured leaves by their vein endings. For example, water drops are seen at the apices of green leaves of wheat grass. আর হুইট গ্রাসটার নাম হচ্ছে নেস্টার্টিয়াম. On warm humid mornings, these water drops come out of water pores at the end of veins and thus exuded water in the xylem sap is shown by the fact that on drying its leaves behind white powder of minerals. What is the difference between permanent and temporary wilting? Permanent wilting, when enough water is absorbed by the roots to meet the rate of transpiration of plants, the plant wilts and will ultimately die without recovering. Permanent wilting কি? When enough water is not absorbed by roots to meet the rate of transpiration, the plant wilts and will ultimately die without recovering. Temporary wilting কি? If a plant has undergone temporary wilting, it is likely to recover if conditions of water become favorable to it. For example, soft herbaceous plants often show temporary wilting on hot, sunny afternoons when the rate of transpiration is very high. But during evening, when the rate of transpiration decreases, plants return to their normal condition. Next question. How would you show that water moves up through xylem tissues? Cut a leafy shoot and immerse the cut end in beaker of water. To which few drops of eosine or safranin are added. কি করে প্রুভ করবে যে ওয়াটার মুভস আপ থ্রু দ্য জাইলেম টিস্যু? একটা লিফি শুট কে ইমার্স করতে হবে. Cut a leafy shoot and immerse the cut end in beaker of water to which a few drops of eosine or safranin are added. Support the shoot by means of a clamp on a retort stand. Support the shoot by means of a clamp on a retort stand. After a few hours, a section of the stem and petiole, when viewed under a microscope, shows the xylem vessels stained a bright red, showing that water rises up a stream through the xylem vessels. Support the shoot by means of a clamp on a retort stand. After a few hours, a section of the stem and petiole, when viewed under a microscope, shows the xylem vessels stained a bright red, showing that water rises up a stem through xylem vessels. এবার what happens to the cell of a fleshy scale of onion when put in strong sugar solution or put in water after some time? Explain. When the cell on an onion scale is put into strong sugar solution, plasmolysis will take place. Since water leaves the cell due to X osmosis under the influence of surrounding strong solution. কি বলছে যখন সেল অফ অনিয়ন স্কেল ইজ পুট ইন স্ট্রং সুগার সলিউশন plasmolysis will take place. Since water leaves the cell, water ছেড়ে দিচ্ছে সেলটাকে due to exosmosis under the influence of the surrounding strong solution. If the plasmolized onion cell is immersed in water, it will slowly recover and regain its turgid state as a result of osmotic movement of water into the vacuole. This is called deplasmolysis and the scene finally becomes fully turgid. Next question. Give reasons jams and pickles do not spoil easily. Jams and pickles do not spoil easily because salting of these foodstuffs raise the osmotic pressure of the medium, thereby killing the bacteria and fungi due to plasmolysis. Jams and pickles do not spoil easily because salting of these foodstuffs raises the osmotic pressure of the medium, thereby killing the bacteria and fungi due to plasmolysis. Next, freshwater fish cannot survive in seawater. Freshwater fish cannot survive in seawater as it is hypertonic environment. As in this hypertonic environment, the fish lose water from their body to surroundings and get destroyed. Freshwater fish cannot survive in seawater as in this hypertonic environment the fish lose water from their body to surroundings and get destroyed. Next, a closed can of dried seeds burst open if some water enters in it by accident. The seeds imbibe water, swell up. The attraction of the dry cell walls and protoplasm for water causes an imbibitional pressure to develop within the seeds. It is this pressure that causes the can to burst open. A closed can of dried seeds bursts open or if some water enters it by accident. The seeds imbibe water, swell up. The attraction of dry cell walls and protoplasm for water causes an imbibitional pressure to develop within the seeds. In this pressure that causes the can to burst open. এবার plants growing in well fertilized soil wilt if soil is not adequately watered. কেন? Why plants growing in well fertilized fields fertilized soil wilt or if the soil is not adequately watered? Plants growing in well fertilized soil wilt if soil is not adequately watered তার কারণ because of plasmolysis. Next, the root of some plants are seen growing through walls and surfaces. The roots of some plants are seen growing through walls of surfaces because turgidity caused by root pressure aids the thin walled tissue of the root tips to crack the walls. The roots of some plants are seen through growing through walls and surfaces because turgidity caused by root turgor pressure adds the thin wall tissue of the root tips to crack the walls. এবার differentiate between diffusion and osmosis. Osmosis হচ্ছে involves unidirectional flow of solvent molecules. Unidirectional flow of solvent molecules. Osmosis. Diffusion, movement of either solute or solvent occurs in both directions. Osmosis occurs in liquids only, diffusion occurs in all mediums. Osmosis is a slow process, diffusion is rapid in gases. Osmosis is the movement of solvent is over a short distance. অসমোসিস হচ্ছে দ্য মুভমেন্ট অফ সলভেন্ট ওভার আ শর্ট ডিস্টেন্স, এটা হচ্ছে অসমোসিস। আর ডিফিউশন হচ্ছে মলিকিউলস অফ লিকুইডস অ্যান্ড গ্যাসেস ডিফিউজ ওভার লার্জ ডিস্টেন্সেস। Osmosis takes place across a living or non-living semi-permeable membrane. Diffusion, no such membrane is required. এবার plasmolysis আর turgidity difference. The shrinkage of the protoplasm from the cell wall when the cell is pressed in hypertonic solution is called plasmolysis. Shrinkage of protoplasm from the cell wall when the cell is pressed in hypertonic solution is called plasmolysis. Turgidity, a cell charged with water with its walls in a state of tension is said to be turgid and the condition is described as turgidity. A cell charged with water with its walls in a state of tension is said to be turgid and the condition is described as turgidity. Next, endosmosis, exosmosis difference. Endosmosis, the inward movement of solvent molecules through semi-permeable plasma membrane of the cell by process of osmosis is called endosmosis. The inward molecule movement of solvent molecules through the semi-permeable plasma membrane of the cell by the process of osmosis is called endosmosis. Exosmosis is the outer movement of solvent molecules through semi-permeable plasma membrane of the cell into the hypertonic medium is called exosmosis. The outward movement of solvent molecules through the semi-permeable plasma membranes of the cell into the hypertonic medium is called exosmosis. Next, list 3 factors that are responsible for ascent of sap. Capillarity, root pressure, cohesion theory. Capillarity, when tubes of different bores or diameters are placed in a beaker containing water, water rises to the greatest height in tube having the narrowest bore. This phenomena is known as capillarity. When tubes of different bores or diameters are placed in a beaker containing water, water rises to the greatest height in the tube having the narrowest bore. This phenomena is known as capillarity. Root pressure. Root pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by the cortical cells of the root upon their liquid contents under a fully turgid condition, forcing a quantity of them into the xylem vessels and through them upwards into the stem. Root pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by cortical cells of the root upon their liquid contents under a fully turgid condition, forcing a quantity of them into xylem vessels and through them upwards into the stem. Ebar cohesion theory. The theory was put by Dixon and Joly and is known as Dixon-Joly's cohesion theory of ascent of sap or transpiration pool theory ki. The theory was put by Dixon and Joly and is known as Dixon-Joly's theory of ascent of sap or transpiration pool theory. This theory has 3 important features: strong cohesive force in water, continuity of water column in the plant, transpiration pool or tension or diffusion pressure, deficit of water. Next question. A complete ring of bark was from a tree in spring. The tree continued to live through summer, but swelling appeared on the bark above the ring while the bark below shriveled up. Account for the swelling in the bark Account for the swelling in the bark above the ring. The swelling in the bark above the ring is because the prepared food gets collected in this region. Account for the shrinking of bark below the ring. Shrinking of bark below the ring is because the food prepared by the leaves is not able to pass down as the phloem has been removed. Name the tissue that distributes food in plants. Tissue that distributes food in plants is phloem. Name the tissue that distributes water in plants. The tissue that distributes water in plants is xylem. What is the role of bark in plant? Bark provides protection to xylem and phloem. The apparatus figure illustrates an important process. Name the process. Osmosis. Where does this process occur in plants? Roots. What solution is placed inside the cellophane tubing? Sucrose solution. What happens to the level of solution in the capillary tube? Rises. Mane level of solution rises in the capillary tube. Define the process mentioned above. Definition of osmosis is defined as the movement of solvent molecules across a semi-permeable membrane from a solution having a higher concentration of solvent molecules to the solution having a lower concentration of solvent molecules, or from pure solvent into solution. Osmosis is defined as the movement of solvent molecules across a semi-permeable membrane from the solution having a higher concentration of solvent molecules to solution having a lower concentration of solvent molecules, from a pure solvent into solution. Next, this figure represents a root hair, cell membrane, epidermal cell, cell wall, nucleus. Cell membrane, epidermal cell, cell wall, nucleus. চারটে part. Which part has as a semi which part acts as a semi permeable membrane? Part 1. Why is the root hair one celled? Because root hair is just the protoplasmic projection of epidermal cell. Root hair is one celled because root hair is just the protoplasmic projection of epidermal cell. Name and define the process by which water enters the cell. It is defined as water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute to a concentrated cell solution. It is defined as osmosis is defined as the water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute to concentrated cell solution. Experiment was set up with a raw potato. Skin of tuber was removed and slices were taken off from all sides, giving it the shape of a square block. The central portion was scooped out to form a cup. Strong sugar solution was put in the cup and liquid level was marked by inserting a pin. The whole potato block was put in a dish containing water colored with drop of ink. What is the aim of the experiment? The aim of the experiment is to demonstrate the process of photosynthesis. What is the purpose of red ink in water? Purpose of red ink in water is to make the process of osmosis clearly noticeable. What change would you expect in the cavity of potato after 1 hour? After 1 hour, the level of solution in the cavity of potato rises. Give an explanation for this change. As the solution in the cavity of potato is hypertonic, the cell sap from the potato cell moves outward, causing exosmosis. This causes an increase in volume of the fluid inside the potato. As the solution in the cavity of the potato is hypertonic, the cell sap from potato cells move outward, causing exosmosis. This causes an increase in the volume of fluid inside the potato. Next, if the raw potato is placed by a boiled potato but otherwise treated in the same way, what difference would there be in result of the experiment? The level of the solution will not rise. Give an explanation for this change. As boiling damages the cells of the potato, therefore its cell sap would have inunded out earlier itself and water level remains the same. As boiling damages the cell of potato, therefore its cell sap would have inuned out earlier itself and water level remains the same. Label the diagram A, B, C and process showing osmosis or diffusion. Osmosis or diffusion, a difference transport of water from a solution of lower concentration to that of higher concentration. Diffusion, transport from high to low concentration along a gradient. Transport of water from a solution of lower concentration to that of higher concentration. Transport or diffusion হচ্ছে transport from high to low concentration along a gradient. Osmosis হচ্ছে either a living or non-living semi-permeable membrane is needed. Diffusion occurs with or without a non-living permeable membrane. Osmosis either a living or non-living semi-permeable membrane is needed. Diffusion occurs with or without a non-living permeable membrane. Osmosis, movement of molecules of only water as a solvent. Diffusion, movement of molecules of solute or solvent. Next, the diagram refers to the experiment described alongside. A healthy potted plant is taken and the stem is cut close to the base. A glass tubing is connected to the cut portion of the stem with the help of rubber hung or tube. A small quantity of water is poured into the glass tube and initial level of water is marked. State what you would observe after a few hours. The water level in the glass tubing will rise. State an example of the for the observation. The upward flow of water is due to heavy pressure from roots, which is called root pressure. Define the process that causes the above phenomena. The above phenomena is caused by root pressure. Root pressure is the pressure developed in roots due to continued inward movement of water through cell to cell osmosis, which helps in ascent of sap out upward through the stem.